Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1. Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Minister Coleman Ford from the Village Church in Fort Worth. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges. Welcome back.
Thank you, Judge Whitley. Before we pray, a reading from God's Word, the first letter of John, chapter 4. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. In this, the love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent his only Son into the world, so that we might live through him. In this is love, not that we have loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. Beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has seen God. If we love one another, God abides in us, and his love is perfected in us. Let's pray. Holy God, we thank you for this day in which it is a new day that you have made. Would we rejoice and be glad? Would we see this as an opportunity to see your love demonstrated in our lives, that your grace is evident amongst each one of us today, and that you have demonstrated your love because you have sent your Son, Jesus Christ, to be the forgiveness of sin, that those who trust in him would have new life. And so I pray that, Lord, that this day that you would be glorified and honored among this place, that the words that we say, the actions that we take would be pleasing to you. Lord, that we would look to you for wisdom, that we would look to you for guidance, that we would not lean upon our own understanding, which is incomplete, which is frail, which is finite. But you, Lord, are infinite. You, Lord, have all the treasures of wisdom that we, Lord, need this day. So would you help us? Would you direct our gaze to you this day, that we may love you in order that we may love others as well. We pray this in the name of Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Tremanius?
Thank you, Honor. Members of the Court, we have several announcements relating to the agenda this morning. First of all, under the District Attorney's Office, item D1, this is a settlement agreement. We're going to consider that after closed today. Also would like to remind the court that next Monday, the 6th, beginning at 9 o'clock in the morning, we are going into budget hearings here in the Commissioner's courtroom. And it's also somebody's birthday, but we tend to, we'll celebrate that on Monday also, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. And then also, members of the court, as it relates to today's agenda, we're going to take one item out of order. As we go into the administrator's section, we're going to go ahead and move to briefing so that we can do the item 11B, which is the 911 Emergency Assistance District text to 911 update, and we'll consider the other briefing item whenever we get to it on the agenda. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of July the 24th.
Move approval.
Second. A motion a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under proclamations, resolutions, we have one. Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have a
I do. I have a presentation
to the Tarrant County Historical Commission, and this has become a very distinguished service award that our organization has received many times for the great work that they do. The Texas Historical Commission recognizes Tarrant County's Historical Commission for distinguished service for the year 2017. And for those that aren't aware, in Texas, county historical commissions provide more than 417,000 volunteer hours in 2017. This is statewide, which is an in-kind donation valued at $10 million. So that's a very significant amount of time and effort that's put out. And we have a number of people. This is actually, our current president, Patricia Ward, I know she's here today, but this was for 2017, and that would have been the year that former past president Steve Meyer was president. Steve, if I could have maybe your whole group, I guess, come up, and I know we have a number of you here. Joe Priddle, is Joe here? Yeah, there's Joe. Bob and Clara Holmes, Flora and Henry, and Jim Hodgkins. If y'all want to come up and
okay. I want to present that to you on behalf of the...
Y'all are going to all have to turn around because they can't get pictures of your back. Well, they can get pictures of them, but we don't want them.
All right. Come out in front. Get out in front. Everybody come around here. Everybody get in front of this.
Joe, you are vertically challenged. Get in front.
Joe, get in the front.
You can't see the camera can't see you.
Yeah.
Nope. She's only got two. You got to wait for 3 flashes.
Steve, did you have a few words to say?
Wait a minute. Move the microphone back. There you go. You got to get the picture.
Here, well, oh, I got to do it right here. Just put it right back here so our cameras can get you okay. Oh, really?
I'd like to thank all the members of the Tarrant County Historic Commission for all the work that they did in 2017 in achieving this award from the Texas Historic Commission. There were several projects that we did in 2017. One was the early Tarrant County history. The other was the World War I. The other project we worked on was the Chisholm Trail and the courthouse tours. So I want to say thank you to all the members of the Tarrant County Historic Commission and thank the Commissioners Court for the support that we had in 2017. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen, thank y'all.
One of the things that, our employees do a tremendous job as far as helping out in a lot of different areas. Meals on Wheels, all the different walks, all kinds of stuff. And this week we have another opportunity, and it's called the Brown Baguette. And it basically is something that the Tarrant County Food Bank puts on. And it's an effort to raise money for those who are hungry. And one of the things that they say that there's our Tarrant Area Food Bank actually covers about a 13 county service area. And what they're indicating is there's 184,000 children in those 13 counties that are food insufficient. And so on August 3rd, what they're asking is that you you can either miss lunch, which most of us can afford to do, and put the equivalent of the lunch, which is they're saying is about $10, and I would agree with that. In fact, that's probably a cheap lunch in today's environment. Or if you would rather, you can go ahead and eat your lunch, but you can contribute $10 to the food bank. And Susan, stand up. Susan's our person who's kind of helping with all of that. Here's the Brown Baguette. I think you can get the money to you, make the checks payable to the Tarrant Area Food Bank if you'd like to do that. Or you can put cash in a sack or a bag and go forward from that standpoint. They understand collecting food. For $1, they can provide 5 meals, and so they do it pretty efficiently. And so I hope that each one of y'all will take an opportunity to get your bag, and I'm going to put my 20 in there. And I don't know if the rest of y'all would like to put.
I'm not putting anything in your bag.
You put 20 in there too for me.
You can put it in, and we can give it to Susan later on, or however you want to work this deal. And I know you probably don't carry anything that small, but it's one of those things. So we'll just work on this, and Susan, afterwards you can come up and you can try to persuade them to maybe. You've got separate bags for each one of them. That way they can each put their dollars in their own bags.
I need to go downstairs to the ATM machine. We don't carry cash nowadays.
You don't carry cash nowadays? So let's all look at that and see if we can't do that. One other thing I want to do before we go back and have Commissioner Fickus move approval of the award that we gave is we had Judge Cook brought a couple of Girl Scout troops by to see me this morning, and they're out in the audience right now. I believe it's Girl Scout troop. Is it 1570 and 1522? Y'all stand up, and let's give them a big hand. They're from the HEB area, and a couple of them just live right down the street from me. When they're out walking, or when those rare occasions that I'm out walking, we can almost walk by each other's houses. So thank you. Yes, ma'am. You're just her friend? You're in a different troop? What troop are you in? Uh-oh. 15 something, right? 1596. So we had 3 of them covered. 3 troops covered. So that's even better. So thank all of y'all for being here today. Judge, thanks for bringing me back. And now, Commissioner Fickus.
Yes, I would like to move approval item 6A, Texas Historical Commission 2017 Distinguished Service Award.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, if we can now go to the briefing item. We'd like to brief item number 11B. And I'm going to ask Ms. Haynes to come up and brief you on this particular item. But also, Ms. Haynes is our new Executive Director of our 911 Emergency Services District. And obviously, Mr. Brunson, who is sitting next to her, is the county's representative to that board.
Welcome. Good to see you again.
Good morning. Thank you.
Morning.
Thank you for the opportunity, Commissioners. In the world of 911, the FCC requires that we submit quite a bit of data to them. Excuse me.
And you can bring that down.
Thank
a
you.
Bit.
Short
Steve's
person
a little tall,
problems.
and so he kind of moved that up.
The data that's important for our conversation this morning is the data that involves wireless communication with 911. On a national average, 86% of the calls received by 911 are due to or via wireless communications. In other words, the non-traditional plug-in-the-wall telephone services. In Tarrant County, We like to go big or go home in Texas, so we are averaging about 90 to 92% on a monthly basis. What this means is that more and more people are relying on their wireless devices to communicate. In the social spectrum of the millennials and the generations, more and more of our folks are texting versus speaking on the phones. In our communities that have challenges, hearing, speech, physical challenges such as ALS or Parkinson's disease, their primary form of communication is some version of texting. Because of that, more and more public safety entities and jurisdictions are considering text to 911 and the texting features that will allow our community to reach the 911 services. So today, what the few points that I will consider for the commissioner and for the county is what aspects of 911 to consider in making a decision as far as moving forward. One, again, as more and more people go to wireless devices versus traditional landlines, that is their primary source of communication. I myself am guilty of that. With the percentage of phone calls that we take in Tarrant County, just the 911 calls alone, 2.1 million. That does not include the non-emergency calls that we receive from our constituents. Each and every one of them have the ability to text in some form or fashion. With the advance of technology, texting has become a concern and a conversation piece within public safety, as we are speaking today. There are some concerns. Text, unlike the traditional 911 phone call, does not have the same mandate or regulations that the FCC imposes. However, the Association of Public Safety Officers, as well as the National Emergency Number Association, known as APCO or NENA, have put out next generation guidelines that would include text to 911. The challenges of knowing exactly how many people would use the services brings up both the staffing concerns and training concerns that PSAPs or 911 centers have to take into consideration when looking to change towards the text to 911 features. There's also the concern for funding. Currently, we fund the 911 traditional services. The new or the next generation services, such as text to 911, would require additional funding. There's also concerns reference going to the 911 or next generation platform that people would want to start sending videos and et cetera, different types of pictures to 911. So these are concerns that all PSAPs or 911 centers have to take into mind when making that decision. As a Tarrant County district, we will of course support whatever the jurisdictions and the governing bodies decide. We are currently working on the call processing equipment project, as you're aware, putting all of Tarrant County's 911 districts on the same phone system so that we have complete access or control over the phone system that we're using. And with that service, we can then put the text to 911 feature on that as called CP or call processing equipment. We are at 40% completion of that, and we anticipate to complete the entire project by the end of 2019. With that said, we as a Tarrant County district, with the approval of our board, would offer to the council and to all those in the governing body the specification that by the end of 2020, we would be able to provide the services for text to 911. And again, that would be based on governing bodies' approval, such as yourself, as well as our board's final agreement. At this time, I open up to you guys.
So you're saying it would take 28, 29 months to get this implemented?
No, sir. What I'm saying is we're working on the CPE project, the new telephone system that the county is implementing in all 50 of the 911 centers, to include the backup centers. We're 40% into that. Until that is complete, it would not be judicious for us to start the text to 911 process. So once that's complete at the end of 2019.
So you're saying it would be 29 months? If you're saying the end of 2020.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
29 months.
Right, because we would want to finish the CPE project first before we would start the text to 911, correct?
I do, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I do like the fact that we finally set a target date. Okay, it's always better to manage a project when you have a target date of completion. So congratulations on holding yourself accountable. Thank you for that. Secondly, when it comes to upgrading the the premise equipment, there are two sets of equipment you have to deal with. You have to deal with the central office,
Correct.
and then you have to deal with the PSAPs, which is the call answering points, right?
Correct.
So when you said December 31st, 2019, you'll be able to complete the equipment upgrade.
That is correct.
Is that for both
That
sets,
is,
or just
yes.
only the central office?
for the entire call-taking process, it will be complete, yes.
Okay. And then what are you gonna do between the 19 and the 2020 to go live?
As far as texting
As far as text to
to 911, so we will be working simultaneously with both completing the CPE project, the call processing equipment project, and doing our research and beginning the project and strategic planning for the text to 911 implementation. So we'll be able to work on those side by side as far as planning goes while completing the upgrades for the Vesta system.
You need the support of all the city councils
That is
in
correct, sir.
Tarrant County as well, right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, so
So
And
let's
that's what
talk
our
a little-
board is looking for.
Let me
Yes,
talk
sir.
a little bit about that, because I want to be sure I understand it. You've got to have a platform on which you can accept the text messages.
That is correct.
Does every city have to have that platform, or can you have it? There are some places where they actually do it regionally, where you would have a center that would accept the text messages. And then I'm assuming that once they've got that text message, they then determine what particular individual agency it would go to, and then they would send that out. So it is a step, as opposed to that text message coming straight into the city where the issue is occurring. And so there is some time differential there. But I guess my question is if we were to go to a center approach, could we make it available quicker than the end of 2020? So let's say you had 3 or 4 regional centers throughout the county that were ready to take text messages. And you get one into Region 1, and one of the cities in there is Benbrook. And the issue is in Benbrook, so the region center would get the text message, they would pick up and they would call Benbrook Fire or Police and say, we have this text message, you need to respond to it. And that, how quickly could we get those centers up? And then are all cities going to want to do this, or are some of the cities going to say, hey, look, we'd rather you do it and call us?
Well, those are the decisions that are left up to you guys as the governing bodies. That's whatever you all decide you want for Tarrant County is what the district will support and put in place. In regards to moving up the date, I would say honestly that would not be a very good strategic plan because of the depth and the amount of work that goes into the CP upgrades. It really does require an all hands on deck, and particularly since we have some of our bigger PSAPs coming up, our bigger 911 centers coming up to cut over, our team would be focused on making sure they cut them over and did it correctly. So to have them split in looking at something else and diverting their time from that would not be a wise use of resources.
And I know, I understand, I think, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, we've been talking about text now for a long time.
Since 2014 that I could remember.
Yeah, and so I guess, and I've seen some information, and I talked a little bit with Mr. Brunson. Guess what the big white county is in the middle of that green sea of green? Well, that's Tarrant County.
Correct.
And if you look nationally, we're the only really large county that's not doing this. And so I can understand that we want to bring everybody along, but at the same time, if we know, if we were to, and you're building these platforms, if you built the platforms first in a regional mode, And it would appear to me that as soon as you, and appear, that's probably a critical couple of words there. It appears to me that if you've got a region set up and it manages via, let's just talk about it in terms of precincts. Now let's go with Northeast, because you've got some pretty, your cities are pretty well defined. So if you did one out in the Northeast, and a text message came in there, once the text message comes into that regional center, does the city itself have to have any special equipment, or are you simply making a phone call to the 911 in that area, or straight to the fire or police in that area and saying, here you got an emergency?
That would be part of the planning module of whichever direction is deemed appropriate for Tarrant County to go into for text to 911. That would be part of the planning module. The agencies involved wouldn't have to make a decision. If we go regional and they're not part of the regional setup, how would they receive the information? Again, I can't make that decision for the agencies. That's something they have to decide what they want. What we would do is support whatever the decision would be.
That's why it's gonna take 29 months, because
Well, and I
we
guess,
have-
but that's the thing I'm saying, is there any way we could move that up without harming I don't want it to be disruptive. But at the same time, we've been talking about it for 48, and now we're adding another 29 to it. And, I'd just like to get the damn thing done.
I can appreciate that, and I've only been talking about it for 4 months.
I understand. You're still in your honeymoon period.
So, yes, thank you. I can't speak for the past, which is why Rick is here. I can speak for the present. And at the present, the impetus for completing the CPE project is significant, and it requires significant resources. And as I mentioned earlier, it would not be a judicious move or a wise move for me strategically to then break off the very same people who are completing that project into the text to 911 activities of which you're referring to. And so that's why I would ask, whatever the consideration would be, being realistic with that project, that we be given the additional 4 months of this year, or 5 plus the 12 of next year, to complete that project before we jump into the technical aspect of text to 911.
Commissioner?
Yeah, got a couple of questions. Do you have any idea what the cost would be to implement this?
Yes, sir. With one example, I can give you one example. Using the CP product that we have now, the call processing equipment we have now, through AT&T, Vesta, which is our call processing equipment, and West, which provides text. The initial startup for Tarrant County, if we went through all of the PSAPs getting text to 911, or all the 911 centers, would be close to $500,000. And that would be to install and to initiate for the first year. The preceding years after that would cost us a little more than $250,000 to maintain the text to 911 equipment and software. And that's with one of the products that we would have available to us.
Is this comparable? Because everybody around us is either doing it or in the planning stages to do it.
That's correct.
Are those numbers per capita comparable to what's happening around us?
Yes, sir. The price is not based on population, and it's not based on any type of jurisdiction. It's based simply on the size of the PSAP and the equipment that we have.
Okay, you made a comment earlier about all the entities. Do you anticipate every city council, every governmental body that's a member of Tarrant County 911 to have to vote to do this, or is this not something that their representative, who they select, cannot make as a board member?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm still trying to figure out how Texas works. So with commissioners and mayors and et cetera, I'm not really sure.
It would seem out of place that you would have to do that.
Rick, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. The reason we've scheduled these briefing sessions with Tarrant County, Fort Worth, Arlington, Grand Prairie, Irving, and the Council of Mayors, which is all the other councils, is so that each board member who represents that entity will know what their the people that they support, what they want. And what we're looking for in the briefings is, A, do you believe that Texas 911 is important? Tarrant County Commissioners Court has always been emphatically articulated that, yeah, we need it, and we need it now. And then the second piece is what type of time frame, who needs to come to the table to have those planning discussions of when that text hits, whether it's to individual PSAPs or whether it's to a regional PSAP or whatever, how those calls are going to get to the first responders. We want to do it the right manner. We want to do it in an organized fashion, but we also need to gauge what the sense of urgency is from the respective communities that make up the board.
So if a particular entity chooses not to accept 911 texts, but as a county, we say we're going to have that capability, then I'm assuming that a city can make three choices. One, we're not taking 911 texts. Two, we're going to set up our own platform and we want the 911 texts to come to us. And three, we're going to allow the text to go to a regional or to 911 region, and then we'll expect them then to push that to our particular either fire or police or whatever the emergency is. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So,
and incidentally, the new fire chief for Fort Worth, he's coming from a region that just implemented that regional approach. So
he's coming from an area that didn't let the individual or did not have the individual cities doing it. He has a region. Now, maybe one of the individual cities was one of the regions.
I think a more accurate way to say it is they went through this same exploratory process that we're going through, and they made a collective decision was that was the best way for them to introduce it in their environment.
What county was that?
Cincinnati.
Or Cincinnati?
Franklin County?
Franklin County, that's Columbus.
Columbus.
But how many PSAPs do we have right now?
43.
43, that's call centers. We have 43 call centers that accept 911 calls. The more call centers we have, the more costly it will become to operate and upgrade the equipment, right? So when you mention $500,000 to upgrade all the equipment, is that everything, the central office as well as the PSAPs?
Yes.
Okay, $500,000 to do that. That's the one-time capital improvement, and then subsequently there'll be $250,000 recurring costs, right?
Correct.
All the various jurisdictions, right now, the funding to provide personnel and equipment at the PSAPs, who's paying for that cost? Is it the cities or is it the district?
Well, in the current data that I've collected, the cities around us and the cities that I've been involved in that have texted 911, it really has not caused an impact to staffing that has required them to hire new people or do anything unusual. Now, I cannot.
My
I'm not saying
is the existing personnel that has been operating the PSAPs.
Mm-hmm.
Who bears that cost? Is it the 911 or is it the city?
It's the city.
It's the city. So when we upgrade the equipment at the PSAP,
Correct.
is that the 911 responsibility or is it the city's responsibility?
911 district.
The district's
The
responsible.
equipment
The
of the
technology
PSAP.
side, yes,
Right.
sir, and the training.
If text to 911 requires additional personnel to handle, then who is responsible for that additional personnel cost?
That again would be part of the decision-making process.
Of the city. The city will have to make that decision, right?
Right.
Okay. And
In
that's
conjunction with the district,
in conjunction with the district.
correct.
Okay. So that consolidation of 41 call centers into maybe 10 or whatever, that conversation needs to take place. Because we're dealing really with the equipment, we're dealing with the financials, and then we're dealing with the human factor or the political side of things, right?
Correct.
Those are the three major factors that y'all have to deal with. So it would be ideal if we get the majority of the cities, if not all, pass a resolution to support text to 911.
Correct.
Right.
Well, they can support the text to 911, but that would be different than saying we're gonna do it on a regional basis as opposed to everybody doing it each one doing it individually. Now, because I think you're gonna have some of the cities who are gonna say, no, we want to do it ourselves. And then you'll have the others who will be glad to turn it over to someone else, i.e. 911, to do that. And so we've got to just find a way to, I guess, either make it all occur at one time, or because I do think it would be disruptive if you had, say, only half of the cities in Tarrant County were accepting text. If you didn't have the capability of making it countywide, which seems to me to be the thing that if we had 4 regions that could do everybody, and as soon as those were ready to do everybody, we started it, and then those individual cities that wanted to do their own could come online, and as they came online, then instead of the text coming to the region, it would go to the individual city. Is that possible?
I mean, it is definitely possible. It would again, the maneuvering and the ideology behind that doesn't come from the district. It comes from you all.
Yeah, but from a
But from technologically speaking,
standpoint,
yes.
you can route those texts to 911 to designated call centers, like the regional center. that the
So
judge-
routing the text itself requires that all of the PSAPs be able to receive text. Even if they're not actually getting the text to be
Right.
able to get the information, there's still a technological requirement that would allow them to do that. If we simply took the text, I take the text, and then I call you and say, hey, I just got a text that someone's having difficulty breathing at such and such location, send someone out, that's different. That does not require a technical upgrade or a technical change. But to transfer the text to another PSAP, the information from that would still require a technological change.
So if you're looking from our input, and maybe what I would say
And I'd
is,
like to say one thing real quick
Go ahead.
before you give
before
us
I
the
get out
say.
there and get out on the,
One of the biggest things that we have to do through this process is education with the community. It's appropriate to hear from the people who run the 911 call centers, but I think each of the individual entities, member jurisdictions, also ought to be reaching out to the people that are underserved right now. The hearing impaired, those folks who have physical issues.
If your cost numbers are correct,
The family violence.
you're 250,000 a year.
The cost?
Isn't that what you said
Yes.
to maintain? If my Aggie math is right, it's 2 million people in Tarrant County. That's 12.5 cents per year per person, which is a penny a month. If my Aggie math is right, I think it is. That's not a big number in the overall
It's
scheme.
not a deal breaker.
Yes. So Rick, talk about the revenue that has been utilized to operate the 911 district. Where does that money come from?
It comes from 2 pools. The first pool is, the rates are set by the 911 board of managers. It's based on the wireline, traditional wireline services. Every residential customer is charged 20 cents a month. A business wireline customer is charged 46, and a business PBX type customer is charged 74 cents for up to 100 lines. The other piece of the pot comes from the state, which assigns a 50-cent fee per month on all cell phones, both prepaid and postpaid. And they collect that money and they reimburse it to, or redistribute it to each of the 911 districts based upon the population. Our mix right now is about, what we get from the wireline is about $2.8 million a year, and the balance comes from the cell phone fees. We have saved our money over the years, so the upgrade that we are paying for comes from our savings, approximately $19–20 million. So there is no impact to the individual citizens that we have out there. The fees that we set for the wireline services were initially set in 1986. They have not changed.
So you've got $18 to $20 million in reserves?
We will not have it after we get through spending the money installing the new equipment.
Will you have $500,000?
Yes, sir.
You know,
What are we waiting on?
you know, I guess, I think what I'm hearing, I say this, first off, I like the idea of doing it regionally as opposed to everybody doing their own thing. Secondly, I would like to see it done as quickly as possible. And, you know, I would look for recommendations, or as you go out and do that, anything that can speed it up and anything that can make it more of a regional type of a deal, so that each city is not incurring additional costs for staff or for whatever the case may be, then, you know, it seems to me like that's the best way to do it. We got 41 cities in Tarrant County. There's several of them are very small, and I'm sure they would much prefer to be on a regional type basis. Some of them are very large, and they may decide, no, we want to do it on our own, and so be it. But the quicker we can do it, I think the better off we are. And I hate to think that it's going to be 29 more months.
Message has been received, and we appreciate your input.
Get after it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
2020.
The end of 2020.
Madam Recorder, we can go to the administrator's section. We have one additional item to bring to you this morning. This is A1. We're requesting that Commissioners Court approve interim financing for a HRSA grant. It's a 2018-29 Ryan White Part D grant. This is what we're asking for is interim financing in an amount not to exceed $85,439.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Tittle?
We have one item that we're asking the court to consider this morning, and that's to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the 9 months ended June 30th, 2018.
Move to receive and file the financial statement.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I don't see Hunter. Who's here from elections? Come on down. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are requesting the court to approve the appointment of presiding election judges and alternate judges for a 1-year term beginning effective tomorrow, August 1st, and expiring on July 31st of 2019.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Glenn?
Move to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
Y'all were right there in tune there for a while. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning and thank you. We have 2 additional items. Item number 2, we're asking the court to approve an out-of-class pay extension for pretrial services. Mr. Manius is requesting out-of-class pay extension for the shift supervisor who assumed the duties of the pretrial services program director who retired earlier this year. As explained in your court communique, if approved, this extension will run through the end of October at a cost to the general fund of approximately $1,200, and that does include fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third and final item is a waiver of terminal benefits, a request for a waiver of terminal benefits. Mr. Wilder is requesting a waiver as detailed in your communique. Specifically, the waiver is for 323 vacation hours. The effective date, if approved, will be September 4th at a net cost to the general fund of approximately $9,100, and that does include fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vinnie. The mosquitoes have been biting again.
Well, hopefully they're not biting.
It
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Public Health is requesting approval of the amendment number 4 to our existing fee schedule. The items included are limited to vaccine administration fees. We're requesting some changes to keep up with market pricing.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beecham.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Your Honor, other members of the court, we have two items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2018-104. Yes, our annual contract for sign shop supplies. Our recommendation will be toward a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors meeting specifications as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Second and last item, again, a bid award recommendation for bid 2018-119. This is our annual contract for equipment rental. Recommendation will be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary, secondary, alternate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brooks has an interlocal agreement on. Has that been reviewed by the attorneys?
It has. Move approval.
Second.
Item N1A and B.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Johnson?
Has mine been approved by the DA's office?
It has.
Move approval of item N2A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the court. We wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the proposed JPS bond program. I thought we had a really good discussion last week and gave very good direction to both the district and to staff. One of the things that I wanted to do, actually I wanted to point out two things. First of all, in our discussions last week, we said that we were going to have an action item up on the court's agenda on the 7th of August and on the 14th. Yesterday evening in discussions with our bond counsel, I had made a mistake on that. The first time that the court can take action would be August 8th rather than August 7th. So what that means is that rather than an action item on the agenda for the 7th, it will be on the 14th. And we have to take final action no later than August 20th. What has happened is the state has condensed that window, and it only gives us 12 days to do that, so we will have a full court meeting in order to go ahead and the court take action whichever way they would like to. Hopefully, though, that by the 7th, I wanted to give you all a copy of the order and the resolution that you will need to pass if you want to move forward with that. We've been working obviously with bond counsel, with counsel from the hospital district on that also, and also the district attorney's office. And I believe we're at a point now where that we're going to be ready to move forward on that resolution. That resolution, as I said, we're going to ask action on that on the 14th. So that's the one issue. The other issue that I would hope that we could develop consensus on is last week when we talked about the size of the bond package itself, there was a staff recommendation, and this court lowered that recommendation. And at the end of the court meeting last week, there was really a range that the court had focused on. And that range was from $750 million to $800 million. And I would hope today that we would have some discussion on that, and if possible, reach a consensus so that we can complete all the rest of the paperwork. So with that, Your Honor, members of the court, if you would like to have discussions and talk a little bit about that, just a quick note. 2 years ago, when the hospital district was interested in calling a bond election, that amount was also $800 million. Now, what we're proposing is something that will deliver more than what they were going to deliver in that particular package. But I believe the court has set a range of 750 to 800, which would be something that we all could work with.
What was the Blue Ribbon Committee's recommendation?
The Blue Ribbon Committee didn't have a recommendation as far as the size of the bond package. What we did with the Blue Ribbon Committee, we asked the committee to tell us what our needs were. And then we asked a consulting group to price those needs. And the price of the needs was approximately $1.2 billion. That's a fairly large number. And since then, we believe that through efficiencies and looking at alternate ways to deliver the same level of service, that we can lower that particular amount. That's why we recommended last week 850. You all set a top rate of 800, and Commissioner Wynn indicated that he was comfortable with 750. So the 750 to 800, I believe that we can meet the needs of the Blue Ribbon Committee on that amount. Remembering also that the hospital district is bringing $300 million over during the life of the bonds.
And we talked about in terms of authorizing up to a certain amount, not necessarily saying we're just going to go out there and,
that's correct,
and borrow that. A couple of other things I guess I would say is I believe that when the hospital board came to us a couple of years ago, the amount was actually just a little over 800. It may have been 805, it may have been 812. I think it was a little bit over. What you're right in what the Blue Ribbon Committee suggested once it was priced out was 1.2, but we do need to remember that included significantly more mental health beds. It included 4 community clinics or community home, medical home type facilities. So there was quite a bit added from that perspective.
Plus a larger number of beds in a new tower.
Right. And I think that, so, where the hospital board was with the 800 plus, we're expanding that. And so that's where I think, they were obviously comfortable with the 800 back then, and they had a lot of cash that at that point in time they hadn't anticipated using. They may have anticipated some of it, but not all of it from that perspective. So
in the report from the Citizen Blue Ribbon Committee, in addition to the buildings, the facilities, the committee stressed very strongly the need to focus on preventative care and informing the public about mental health and how to deal with that crisis, and also the need to improve the state of health of Tarrant County residents. the Board of Managers is certainly comfortable with a range of 750 to 800. My argument here is when it comes to debt, the lesser the better. And if the Board of Managers can operate with 750 million in debt plus the 300 million in cash to be accumulated over 10 years, then every dollar that we are not putting into debt to build new facilities, that money can go to direct services to take care of the patients and to implement some of the preventative strategy that has been recommended by the same committee that recommends these buildings. And that is why I strongly encourage that we look at 750, a number that is doable by all parties involved, and it will present lesser debt for the hospital district, but it will also enable more money into direct patient services. And I think that's an important reason for us to consider.
You know, I think we've got to be, I hear what you're saying from that standpoint as far as more money, but we need to be careful about saying we're going to take some of this or either the cash reserve or whatever and put it in direct patient services, because that's an operational, ongoing, year after year type of a deal. I believe that, you know, if we were going for the 800, then yes, I believe we've got close to 300 million in cash right now. I believe that over the next 5 to 10 years, as this project rolls itself out, we will accumulate the other money that we will need if we don't find that money through collaboration with public-private partnerships. You heard Robert last week. We've already made some, I think, strides with regards to the cancer center. I think there's some other opportunities out there for public-private partnerships with the parking garage, with other opportunities that can present themselves. So I don't think that when we're looking at what the Blue Ribbon Committee proposed and what we're planning on doing, I don't think we're reducing that. Now, you know, the operational thing is very important. We are expanding that. I think there's going to be some efficiencies in the fact that for the last 34 years since the last time we did a bond issue, we've kind of shoehorned things in wherever it would fit. And that's not been the most efficient when it comes to putting things together. So I do hope that we pick up some efficiencies as we go forward. You know, I would probably lean to a little bit closer to the 800 million, just because I'm still looking at it is that we're authorizing up to, and not that, okay, that's the amount we're going to go out and borrow come hell or high water. So, you know, again, that would be my thoughts.
I can support the 800.
I think we need to pay attention to what our consultants have told us, and you came in at 8, or was it 850?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I thought. And so we've, at 800, we're taking 50 off.
That's correct.
Of what the consultant said we needed, minus the 300 million.
Yeah,
from the district.
Yeah, minus the 300 million, it was actually 900 million then. You know, 300 and 900 is 1.2 million, a bill.
Because we were at 1.2.
Right.
300's 9, you come in at 850.
And what we
I
saw,
think coming in at 750 could possibly put us in a position when we get down the road, we find we can't finish. Would be my concern. I mean, we could go back to the voters again, but that's not a good way to operate.
So I hear you at 800?
Yeah.
So the
799.
99, 99, 99.
It's only money, right?
Well, it's taxpayers' money.
That's right.
It's
So
never
the,
only money.
The cash that we've been talking about.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. My understanding is the cash that we are talking about is over and above the amount of cash that JPS already have for operational reserve, like 120 days of operation, right?
Actually,
tomorrow, what they call the,
the future fund.
The future fund. That's $120 million.
There's $120 million in that, and
what the court is asking the board manager is to accumulate an additional $180 million in the next 10 years, totaling
right.
300.
And so at this current time, the district feels comfortable with a operating reserve of 200 days, and that. And so with that number, the district can bring the 120 over, plus I believe it's 64 additional $1 million. So they can bring about 100, I'm sorry, it should be, the total they can bring over right now is about $182 million. And whatever the math works out on that. And we believe that over the 10 years, that as we go through the district's budgets, and their budgets are a lot like ours, they have cash carry forwards that you'll be hearing about on Monday with ours, and that they feel comfortable that over that 10 years they can add to that $82 million to make a total of $300 million that they can bring to the project for capital expenditures.
And I'm probably a little bit more stingy and think they could probably bring over the 10 years. I think they can get over the 300. I think they can get, closer to maybe 350. I would say that right now, I think they have somewhere between 200 and 250 easily. But I do think that over a period of time, they can accumulate a little bit more. But I also think, and they've proven this, and I keep referring back to the Cancer Center, but I think there are opportunities for them to do things that may alleviate the need for building a new building. We've just eliminated the need for building a cancer center. I think it's absolutely critical that we build the medical homes, because those are out, and that goes to your preventative, the whole preventative thing you talked about, and I think is very critical. But, I feel like, and I'm gonna say 800 also, just to say that 800, that means that between what I think they can accumulate an additional extra cash, and through just negotiating and working and collaborating with other providers, whether it be, they're doing some stuff with the Moncrief Cancer Center right now. There will be opportunities for them to collaborate with other folks, and we've got that tradition here. I think we can make up that 400 million difference between the 1.2 and the 800 through cash and through working with public-private partnerships and things along that line.
Right, and that's exactly my point, because when you build a new patient tower, the existing employees from the existing patient tower can be moved over to operate the new tower. So hopefully we wouldn't be expanding additional labor costs.
Yes, I
and
hear
so
what you're
forth,
saying.
right?
Okay.
The same can apply to the surgery center, but when you build 4 new medical homes, you don't have existing personnel to operate those new medical homes. You have to hire new people. You have to put in new equipment and so forth. Right now, I don't know how much it costs to operate the Arlington Medical Home, but I think it got to be exceeding $10–15 million per year.
I don't have that. I don't have that.
Well, and you will be
Andy, we're building one in Euless,
Right.
and we're moving the personnel from the Bedford clinic to the Euless clinic.
Right, but the new medical homes that we are talking about will be brand new ones.
Well, no, this is a brand new one, hadn't even
I know,
opened
I'm
yet.
talking about,
But it's still it's the same kind of, it's the model, along with the Arlington one, I think, but it's the model that they're talking about using.
And I think there may be some opportunities as we select the sites and build new medical homes, there may be some opportunities to close down clinics or to consolidate with, again, when it talks about collaboration, as we look at these medical homes, I hope that we include MHMR. I hope that we include JPS, maybe even Cooks and some of the children's services in those facilities, and that they're not just solely and entirely, we've got a new clinic opening up on the north side, an FQHC, that is going to double the amount of space available, i.e. coverage, for folks, and their new executive director, who came first from Boston, and then I believe out of Atlanta maybe. She refers to those as neighborhood clinics, and that's a lot of what they're calling those facilities, not just FQHCs or not just safety net type things, but really they're neighborhood type clinics.
When we did Gertrude Tarpley in Watauga, that was, to begin with, it was a lease facility.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Second thing is, we put public health into the JPS clinic.
Public health's the other one I was thinking about.
So
Sorry,
public health has, probably 50% of the total of the space that, less than what the JPS has, but they've got a significant presence there with, I think, 12,000 feet. And JPS is about 25.
So I see us really, as we talk about this, I sense and feel more and more excitement about these medical homes and some of the things that we're doing there. Yes, the mental health is in my opinion, it is the top priority. And that's what the Blue Ribbon Committee said. But also the preventive part of the deal, and what you're saying with the clinics are extremely, extremely important as we try to spread this out. So I kind of think I hear 800. And if I'm hearing wrong.
You know how this works. Takes three to tango, and I don't have three. As usual.
Well, I hope that you'll feel good about the 800 going forward. And
just it's been said before, this is an authorization.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean that we would expend it. The key to all this, quite frankly, is to manage the process and to become as efficient as we possibly can, because everyone's goal is to save taxpayers' dollars while delivering a quality product.
Right, and I understand that. And my concern is, I'm just going to be very transparent about it here, is I'm looking at the crystal ball, and I say 10 years down the line, you won't be here, and most court members won't be here. This court has been very frugal and conservative when it comes to managing costs and debt and so forth. I can't predict what the future will hold. So from that point, the silver lining is to hold the line as much as possible at this point and make it easier for us to manage the unpredictability of the future, and that's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, the other thing that, in addition to needing three to dance, we can never obligate a future court to do anything. So that's one of the things that we just have to trust that the folks that follow us will continue down the road, or maybe they'll find a better road to go down. Who knows? One other thing I know that we've talked a little bit about from a standpoint that, we're going to do this on the 14th, and I think that's a good idea. I know Mr. Powell has been a regular here, and I think we need to, we need to talk and convey to them kind of where we are, and just be sure they're aware of what we're suggesting, what we're going to vote on.
I intend to call Mr. Powell today.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you. Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Then we will proceed from our open meeting we'll recess to our closed meeting to discuss items exempted under Section 551.07107 Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Judge, Commissioners, we'd ask the court to approve the settlement agreement and full, final, and complete release for claims by Tommy Waller against Tarrant County.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
There being no more business, we're adjourned.